Life's good around here on the Horse Racing Happy Hour, hanging out with Bobby Ehalt of BloodHorse and Steve Kornacki, NBC Sports. My name's Louis Rabeau. Thanks for seeing us yet again on a Thursday edition of the program. We'll be back tomorrow with a SoCal Saturday preview of the Santa Anita Derby. But today we're talking New York City, so we got our guys from Connecticut and Manhattan alongside between Bob and Steve. Bob, welcome back in, buddy. How are you?
We're doing great, Louis. Looking forward to the final wood at Aqueduct, the final two-turn wood, everything like that. So a little bit of fun here at in the air after a kind of really rough winter up north. I think Steve would agree.
Yeah, it's nice to get back to racing, Steve. Final wood at Aqueduct this weekend. Hard to believe at this point.
You know, it is. And about a year ago when I started looking ahead to this date, I said, well, I'm going to go there. Of course, this Easter weekend, I'm going to be traveling. Otherwise, I'd love to see it for the last one, you know?
Yeah. So Sean Collins of BloodHorse will be out there. We'll have our full reaction to that. Bob and Sean will be on camera together. So if you were looking for what we call in the business sexy overload, check out that video as part of BloodHorse Monday with Bob and with Sean there. But appreciate both of you jumping on the program here. Bob, you mentioned that that last wood here at Aqueduct. Just over the years, is there a memory of the Wood Memorial that stands out? Is there a singular winner that stands out? I think my favorite wood of all time, even though it was on TV, probably the Frosted one in 2015. Do you have a favorite one?
There are a few. I mean, watching Easy Goer win so easily when he won in, I believe, 1989. That stands out. I remember it's hard to forget Bellamy Road, who just exploded in the stretch and won in such a dominant form when he set the track, when he matched or set the track record. Those are really some great efforts. And I will say one of the probably the biggest upset I can remember, I think, was Uncle Mo getting beat because no one thought he would get beat. People mention, well, there was Secretariat in the Wood. Yes, he did finish third, but he did finish, Sham was second that day. Sham was a real good horse. I'm not going to say Toby's Corner was a good horse. I mean, there was nobody thinking Uncle Mo was 1-10. Nobody thought he was going to get beat. And when he did, it was such a stunning happening. So as I say, you kind of remember the dominance, the quirkiness of Fusaichi Pegasus, and but just some great memories. I mean, I will say, I hate to show my age, but this is going to be my 47th straight wood that I've either been at or covered. And my first one was 79, seeing Instrument Landing. So yeah, there are a lot of memories, and some very good ones, some ones where I scratched my head like Bourbonic and said, how'd that happen? So
some people do blame Bob for the lack of Triple Crown winner between 1979 and 2014. I'm not going to do that here, Steve. But as we get to the last Wood Memorial here, I was making a remark on Monday that, it's an interesting watching how this field came together, for example, Steve, in this Wood Memorial, where people have in recent years been pointing toward Florida, pointing toward the Bluegrass. And the Wood has kind of lost some of that cachet. You heard the mention there from Bob of Fusaichi Pegasus, the last winner of the Wood to go on to win the Derby. Now been 26 years since that happened, Steve. It's almost as though people are using this as the other way. We talk about the other Baffert, for example, the other way to qualify for the Derby this year. I think we got some runners like that in this version of the Wood.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it's just sitting there offering those 100 points that you can go get in any of these other races. And it does feel, I mean, we'll talk about it when we get there. It does feel like it's sort of the last chance cafe for a lot of these entrants. But yeah, I mean, it's a huge field this year, which it's at least an interesting field, can say that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. To this point in the year, Bob, is there been someone on the New York route to the Kentucky Derby that has stood out for you? Is there someone that you think, okay, I've seen them and maybe not a winner of the Derby, certainly in a 20-horse field, but hey, this is a horse that can hit the board?
I think Iron Honor, who's going to be favored in the Wood, fits into that. I think he looked thought he looked very good in winning the Gotham. Look, he's got to have some ability because Chad Brown is kind of pushing some of the Chad Brown parameters in terms of running because, he's coming back on the 4 weeks in the Wood. And certainly if he runs well enough, he'll be in the Derby. another 4 weeks from now. So I think he's been the most impressive. We'll see about Talk to Me, Jimmy. He did win that. He did win the Withers by 11. You kind of wonder the quality of that field. The track was pretty fluky in terms of aiding speed horses. So we're going to find out a lot more. And, as much as we say about the winter, in terms of running at Aqueduct, and that does go back to my first wood, where I liked Instrument Landing to beat General Assembly because Instrument Landing was kind of New York based in his career. Let's see what Napoleon Solo does when he gets back to Aqueduct, because I think that was the most dazzling stakes win I saw last year by a 2-year-old. If getting back to Aqueduct brings him back to form, we may be putting a different horse into that answer he just gave.
He's Bobby Ehalt. He's from BloodHorse. Steve Kornacki from NBC Sports. Lots of other ways to qualify for the Derby, Steve. For example, tomorrow we're going to be talking about a horse in Potente just making his third start there at Santa Anita Park. Wins the San Felipe last out. I'm fascinated by him because he doesn't look like many of the Baffert Derby runners that we've seen historically, where he's a grinder. He just wants the more and more distance. He's not kind of the go catch me if you can type that we expect from the Baffert barn. But looking down, to South Florida, the fairgrounds, to Arkansas, has anyone else stood out on the trail for you?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's I'll be Captain Obvious here, but the last time you had me on, I think it was right after the Sam F. Davis, and you were saying, who's caught your eye so far? I said then Renegade, and all Renegade did since then was just look like an absolute beast in the Arkansas Derby. So,
no doubt
I my own list, I'm hardly alone in this. I got to put him at the top. But I mean, look what happened, down at Gulfstream. I mean, Commandment, that running style too, which is, he can. He doesn't panic. It certainly seems, in those races. But not just Commandment. I mean, Chief Wallaby's been with him there, kind of right there at the wire. And you looked at that gallop out in the Florida Derby, and Commandment and Wallaby ended up, I think, going past the Puma a little bit. So I don't know if you're ever going to get much of a price, especially after last year on a Bill Mott horse who ran really good in the Florida Derby, but came in second third in the Florida Derby. He was second last year. But Chief Wallaby maybe gets a little forgotten just by not winning.
Yeah, it has sort of that sovereignty change. I thought of Mage, Bob, when I watched the Puma on 3 weeks rest come back and kind of not get there, same connections, all those sorts of things. I'm actually excited. I think that 3 weeks into the Florida Derby, then 5 weeks getting into the Kentucky Derby, I think it sets up well for a horse like the Puma.
It could. He certainly is a durable horse. I mean, he showed that you could come back on these, what people nowadays are, oh my gosh, short rest. I wish I could work every 3 weeks. That would be a pretty nice life. But I certainly, I could see that. I think he's a very game horse. Fun people around him. The connections. I think it's going to be a pretty wide open Derby in terms of the wagering. I guess imagine once all the sheet numbers and everything get formulated, we'll see. But I think right now it's a little hard to peg exactly who you might want as a favorite, because you could certainly look at Commandment, you could look at Renegade, and then, as I say, who are you going to, the horses behind them are probably not going to be far off in the wagering.
The great news is the general public loves a favorite. So they're gonna pound one of these horses for us and give us lots of great betting options once we do get to that first Saturday in May. And look, lots of ways to go into the Derby. Last year, we had a very top-heavy type of Derby, journalism, sovereignty coming in out of their very impressive Derby trails. This year with the defections, Paladin, Ted Nafi, etc., does seem to open it up a little bit, but we still have, Commandment's got 1 billion points, these sorts of horses that are turning up. Are we really going to turn down a Florida Derby winner out of the Brad Cox barn and get, think that horse doesn't have a chance? Of course, we won't do anything like that.
I would like to say, I'm wondering who's going to be the wise guy horse.
Yeah, right.
Because, every year you get that one horse you didn't expect is going to get bad, and then it usually doesn't do too well. But I'm just wondering, this year you got a lot of possibilities for who might be the quote unquote wise guy horse on the first Saturday in May.
Yeah, I always give Danza a shout out at this point of any of this kind of conversation, because he actually hit the board as the as the buzz horse in his year in the Derby. Steve, do you have a sense of the buzz horse so far this year?
I know, I'm curious for the same thing. I haven't picked up on it.
I think Silent Tactic might be it, just because he's a closer and people love closers, right?
Yeah. I mean, but just looked so thoroughly beaten by Renegade there. But yes, no, I think that's exactly. You look at the way the race has run the last couple of years, with these closers, that might get some attraction.
Well, and frankly, Silent Tactic, not terribly different than what we thought of Mystic Dan going in to the Kentucky Derby just a couple of years ago for Kenny McPeak. Should be a fun one as we navigate the next month or so of Derby talk. Let's get into the handicapping here. Obviously heading to Aqueduct for Saturday. We're going to talk about 4 races. We'll start with the Carter, then we'll move into the Distaff, the Gazelle, and of course the Wood Memorial to close the card. We'll start with you here, Steve. Race 7 on the card is the Carter. They're at Aqueduct on Saturday, 7 furlongs on the dirt. We're only running on the dirt this time of year at Aqueduct, 4 and up, and $300,000 on the line. One of the more historic races, frankly, there in New York. That isn't a race at Saratoga. Steve, book 'em Dano back in here. Man, I love quality, but boy, it really hurts us those of us that like to bet on these things, huh, Steve?
Yeah, I know. I said call me Captain Obvious on the Derby Trail question there. I'm going to say the exact same thing here. I mean, I looked here. I spent a little bit of time seeing is there some way to beat Bookham Dano here. I mean, look, he is coming off the long rest. Yep. So, there is that, although I think the main threat to him is also coming off 4 or 5 months, on the bench, rated by merit. I just think, look, Bookham Dano was so impressive last year that they kind of, I think the switch last year was they had him running a lot closer to the front. He wasn't having to do as much work kind of in the stretch. He was getting himself in trouble, I think, earlier in his career. Last year, they seemed to figure that out. I really do believe, I know he's a kind of a controversial figure, but I really do kind of believe Paco is a perfect match with this horse, really gets something out of this horse, maybe a little bit extra. I've seen Paco do that with other horses, I believe. I think this is one of them. Here's Paco, coming up to Aqueduct Saturday. And I have a hard time getting around Bookham Dano here.
I think a very obvious setup for him to return in the Churchill Downs on Derby week back in the Grade 1. His only loss under Paco Lopez last year was a 4th place finish in that race, only behind Mindframe Banishing and Nisos. Turned out to be an okay race there. Bob, are you going to try to beat Bookham Dano here?
I agree with Steve. I mean, you guys, I think certainly he's the class of the field. The layoff gets you wondering, is he going to be totally wound up for this race? Again, are they looking forward to the Grade 1 at Churchill Downs? Though, again, with the horse being a gelding, I don't think that really matters too much in some terms like that. But it's interesting because, like mentioned, rated by merit, he's coming off a layoff. He's one of those horses. He rarely shows up, but when he does, he turns in a big effort. But I'm not sure if he's up to really meeting a seasoned, experienced horse like Bookham Dano. I think there could be an upset. Maybe the horse on the rail, Point Doom, speed from the rail, and you kind of wonder, how's this race going to unfold? Is rated by merit going to go out with Point Doom, or are they going to let him go? And then the other 2 jockeys kind of play cat and mouse and say, okay, when are you going to go after him? When are you going to go after him? And maybe he gets away with reasonable fractions and kind of is able to hold on and pull off a victory from the rail. So to me, that might be how it goes. But yeah, it is tough. It's certainly very tough to get past Bookham Dano.
Point Doom, the winner of the General Georgia 7 furlong race there at Laurel Park. We have seen over the years, Bob, plenty of horses come up from Laurel Park and run really well at Aqueduct. So that would not be a total stunner for sure in this spot. We move on to the Distaff, the mare and filly side of this thing. Same race, same conditions, 7 furlongs on the dirt. In this one, it will start the late pick 3. Steve and I will share our late pick 3 tickets as we get later in the show as well. But in the Distaff here, Bob, I thought a fun field, Take the Money, Honey, and trying to remember here. Sorry, Bout Well Time, the 1 and 2, almost certainly going to be running in Maryland this weekend. Leaves a trio of horses led by Immersive, who are going to be the shortest odds on the board. When you look at Immersive in this spot here, Bob, what do you think the intention is for Brad Cox? Do you think he wants her to be a one-turn horse going forward here, or is this a setup to get her back into, say, a longer race at Churchill Downs over Derby week, something like that?
It's kind of it's a hard situation to see because these races for the fillies and mares. I mean, is she ultimately going to get herself ready to go in the say the Ogden Phipps the La Troyenne, things like that.
Yep.
I think he's going to look to see how she performs in this race to see exactly where she's going to fit in. As I say, certainly 7 furlong sprint. That's where you have the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint at that distance. Yep. So I think this is going to be very telling as to see whether that'll be the long-term objective, or does he feel she could be good enough to run against the very best fillies at 1 1/8 miles. So as I say, I think this is going to be an interesting test for her as to how she could do. It's a good field. It's not really. I don't think it's a great field. I think she's certainly on class alone. You like her. I think the one that I'm kind of interested with, she loves Aqueduct, Jody's Wish, Jody's Pride. She, she's here 3 for 3 at Aqueduct, has not been racing well, but, has been given a little bit of time off. Sometimes getting back to a track they like brings out the best in the horse. And certainly I've seen her perform well enough at Aqueduct that I would kind of look at her in my mind as the main competition, who you might get a nice price on, depending on how the public kind of looks at those last few races.
Jody's Pride, the winner of the Ruffian, the grade 2 there at Aqueduct last May as part of their Belmont series as well. That was over the 1 mile. Steve, what do you make of a horse like With the Angels? Looked really good last time out. Has never been worse than second in 8 tries at Aqueduct. What do you make of her? Jose Lascano and Linda Rice here.
Yeah, no, I think interesting, competitive, and I wouldn't be shocked if she won. But the stat that always stands out at me when I see a horse like this is Linda Rice in graded stakes, and it's what I have it written at 3 for 59. Yeah, 3 for 59 graded stakes at Aqueduct. So. I just, I think this is one of her, better horses. She doesn't tend to, she tends to excel more in the claiming ranks and stuff, but so this is one of her better horses, but that stat just kind of always, when I see her horses pop up in these races, it always kind of pushes me away. I think, especially unless the price is going to be something really special. So I really kind of agree with Bob on this one, where I like Jody's Pride. I think the 1-turn race sort of at this track at Aqueduct has been her specialty. What I just said a minute ago about a little bit of that, I believe in it, that Paco Lopez magic. Paco lands here again. I look at her last couple races. I think that Gulfstream race she comes out of, she ended up racing on the lead there, which has not been her thing. I just think that you can almost kind of throw that one out. They had her on the turf twice. So it just feels like she's getting back to where she wants to be, doing what she wants to do with a rider who I think can win. So I'll take a shot there.
If someone said they were going to play Jody's Pride and they were going to try, Bob, if they were going to try With the Angels to beat Immersive in the late pick 3 here, would you support that kind of wager where, you're pressing your opinion outside of the favorite?
Yeah, I can see that. You got to try to get a little bit of value into the ticket because, certainly, there are some good favorites. There are at least decent sized fields that are going to help you in terms of your payoff and such. But I think it could be possible. To go that way. I think Immersive looks like a horse. I think you definitely want in your exactas. I don't think she's going to finish any worse than second. But I could see scenarios where she can get beat, and it just depends on how you want to play your ticket. Maybe play them with the horses that you might like, and then kind of maybe put together a long shot ticket with Immersive and go looking for some long shots in the next 2 legs, so that maybe you're getting a pretty nice payoff. Because if you get the 3 favorites, if you're going to get the 3 straight favorites, it's a payoff you're not gonna miss.
Or at least if that's what you really feel, just play a $25, $50 pick 3 and just put those 3 in there, be done with it, and just do that and take your 4-1 or whatever it might be by the end of the races. By the way, Steve Kornacki will tell you in his pick 3 why he's going to try to beat Immersive in the Distaff later on. The Gazelle is up next. It is the Oaks Prep on the card up there at Aqueduct, 1 1/8 miles. If you are unfamiliar with the layout there at Aqueduct, it is a 1 1/8 miles course, just like Saratoga, Ellis Park, etc. So start at the same place where they are going to finish, and we will get into this one horse by horse. I'm fascinated by this race, guys. I think it's a very fun field, and this Oaks field in general, I'm having a hard time landing on a single horse. I know everyone's real excited about Zany, who will run in the Ashland tomorrow, there at Keeneland. But boy, I really like Paradise in here. And, Steve, as we go through here, You get Brad Cox, you get Manny Franco, and you get a horse that last time in the Busher seemed to really take to the track really well. Hard not to like her in this spot. We're going to play a game like we always do on this show. But first, are you guys ready for some Gazelle fun facts? I think you are. Young Bob Ehalt, did you know that gazelles have been clocked at over 60 miles an hour? And do you know that when they jump, it's known as pronking? You know, those real sudden jumps that those gazelles are able to make. It's called pronking. Bob, do you feel like you've ever pronked in your life?
I'm not going to talk about it in public.
That's usually how it goes. Steve, what do you like or not like about Paradise? We are playing Gazelle if you think she's got a shot to win, or Donkey if you don't. Which one does she fall under?
She's definitely a gazelle.
Darn right she is.
You know, what I don't like is I think, the price, the fact that she hasn't gone 2 turns yet. I know this is Gun Runner, but I think there are, some questions with exactly what she's done, who she's beaten. I think there's some vulnerability. So it's, she's a gazelle. I don't know if she'll be pronking after the race, though.
It's a solid pronking reference. All right, Bob, is she a gazelle or a donkey here? Paradise breaking from the inside. Does the inside post bother you at all in this race?
No, not really. You're going to save ground.
I agree.
I don't think she is a horse that's, I think that's going to be a good position for her. If she wants to let the speed go out, she will. She's not really a horse who has to be on the lead. So I think that's a real good position that she's going to be able to save ground. So definitely the gazelle. And when she's retired, we'll see if she goes to the farm for what.
Always a runner will break from the 2 here, Bob. A second timer for Chad Brown. And we have seen already on this Oaks Trail, second timers pick off 100-point races, horses coming out of maiden wins at least pick off 100-point races. Always a runner. Dylan Davis gets the mount here. Gazelle or donkey in this spot?
I might tend to say donkey. I generally am a big fan of all of Chad Brown's horses, but I saw similar things with this. I mean, you're looking at the buyer figure. It's a 59. That means he's really got to make she's got to make the big jump to become a factor here. So I'm tempted to look past this one in that spot.
Dylan Davis, 6 wins already in 49 races this year. Steve, gazelle or donkey for the 2 horse here? Always a runner.
I'm going to call her a gazelle, mainly because I think when in that Tampa race, it seemed like she was pretty green, I think, first of all. So there's room for improvement. It's Chad, it's second time, so there's definitely room for improvement. I also think she just towered over that field and was in command late. And I did kind of think that buyer could have been higher if they wanted. And if that buyer had been mid-60s or something, and then you're saying, can she make another move forward second time out? I think it would put her right in it. So I'm gonna call her a gazelle.
Whit Beckman shipping Nikon up to New York rather than running at Keeneland. Lots of cross-entered horses, but Nikon will run in New York. Steve, we saw her in the Busher last out. She was very good in the cash run before that at Gulfstream Park. Second place finish here gets her into the Oaks for sure. So you imagine they're trying to do that once again. Whit Beckman and Jaime Torres on this one. Of course, Icon Racing owned by former major leaguer Jason Worth. So be careful here, Steve. Gazelle or donkey? I'm just kidding. Jason.
Yeah, I swear I'm not going to answer this for every single one of them, but I'm going to say gazelle again here.
Oh, no. All right. Oh, Steve. Oh, I like them all. Press all. No, I'm just kidding.
I know. Well, you'll see there's a logic to this. I think that'll be revealed in due time here. She passed Paradise on the gallop out, and I just think there's the chance here that, going around 2 turns, going 9 furlongs, that's what she's meant for, not what she was doing in the Busher.
Bob?
I agree. I put her as a gazelle. I mean, this is a horse. She's always in the mix. I certainly don't see any reason why you couldn't pick her to be in your trifectas. I mean, certainly, I think she has the breeding to handle the distance. She's got the running style that if horses get sometimes you might see one speed horse kind of dominate, and then the rest of the field backs up. And certainly, I could see her being in your exotic. So I would definitely consider her a gazelle.
Talk with Bobby Ehalt, the BloodHorse, Steve Kornacki, NBC Sports. I'm Louis Rabaud, and this is the Horse Racing Happy Hour. We are going through the field for race number. I lost my race numbers. For race number 11 at Aqueduct this weekend. It is the Gazelle. It is a prep for the Kentucky Oaks. If you win this one, you get a spot in the starting gate for that race. 2 bits will break from the 4 Bob. And this is an Amelia Green trainee. How about that? We saw her last out in the Ruthless. Before that, in the Busanda, behind Dazzling Dame quite a bit there. But boy, this is one that's already won twice at Aqueduct. It was a second place finish in the Busanda, at least. Comes back, looks a lot better, frankly, in the Ruthless, much closer to the pace even later in the race. What do you make of her here, this daughter of American Pharoah?
I definitely got her as a gazelle. I mean, this is hard. I mean, this is like this is a winter horse. And generally, I kind of look at it that the winter horses are live until March. And then when April comes, the better horses start coming up and they kind of fade back into a little bit of obscurity. But I like the way that she was running on tracks that really were not suited for her. I mean, they favored the speed, and she really showed some grit and determination. I kind of like this horse. I think to me, she could be a possible upsetter in the race. So I definitely would consider this one a gazelle.
Well, and with the connections there, I think you're going to get every bit of the 9-2, if not a longer number, right, Bob?
Yeah, I think again, because you look at this. This is your prototypical winter type horse. And
sure,
like I say, they generally have a certain shelf life. But I'm just thinking the way that the tracks were playing, I'm going to try to play into that. Hopefully that she gets that she could get a good trip. And I do think, being by American Pharoah, I think she's going to like the distance. So I'll, I definitely can see her being in this picture.
She's definitely pronking, but is she a donkey for you, Steve?
She's my first donkking. Yeah. Although I gotta say,
no pronk at all. No pronk. None for you. That's right.
I'm feeling a little nervous though, hearing Bob's take on it, because I think he follows Aqueduct more closely than I do, and my own sense of some of those races was that the flow and the way the track was playing might have been helping her. So it was sort of on that basis that I was saying, I know the what was it? The Ruthless was that early February when everything seemed mixed up. So I don't know. My own sense had been that maybe she was, they were kind of flukish races and she was helped a little bit. So that was why I was tossing her. But now, of course, I'm second guessing myself.
He's Steve Kornacki. You can catch him pronking on NBC Sports. Number 5 is Baffle. Kendrick Carmouche and Todd Pletcher. Boy, if we were betting any race at Aqueduct, this is one we would look at. The two of them always win about 25 to 30% of their races together. We last saw her in the Virginia Oaks over the one turn there. Steve, what do you make of her chances here? Donkey or gazelle?
Yeah, no, I'm going to go donkey on this one. Just, has not really been that close. A maiden still 6 times. So, I'll throw Pletcher out and call her a donkey.
There you go. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. What do you make of that one, Bob?
I'm on the donkey trail too on this one. I mean, I think this looks like a horse is just going to be maybe closing a bit at the end and kind of suck up into something. I don't see her being able to win the race. Maybe superfecta players might want to use it to get into a picture, but I don't really see her as a competitive one you'd want in like one of your like a pick 3 or anything like that.
Out of the Rapoli stable, Daughter of Violence there. Munnings on the dam side, obviously trying to find out what distance that one wants to go. Bob Pashmina will break from the 6 here. Ramon Vasquez in town to ride for Rob Atras. This is one that we saw at Sunland Park in the Oaks there, ran 3rd behind Bottle of Rouge, who's turned out to be an okay contender, generally speaking, amongst 3-year-old fillies. What do we make of Pashmina on here? An interesting entrant.
I'm generally not a big fan of some of this. I would put her as a gazelle. I mean, I think I'm not a big fan of, that's weird. Sunland Park, and now you're out at Aqueduct. So the horse definitely has a lot of frequent flyer miles. But, she seems to be a good, honest, competitive horse. Rob Atras has been on fire, so you want to definitely kind of respect that. I think this is the kind of field where, and the distance where we don't know as much about these horses yet, and we're going to find more out. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if she turns in a big effort.
The second best last out speed figure coming in is Pashmina. Gazelle or donkey, Steve?
She's a gazelle to me, definitely. I think, I kind of look at her PPs here, and I feel like this might be the race where it all finally kind of comes together for her. I think in that Sunland race, she had trouble in the stretch there that I think cost her some momentum. She still finally got going late. She passed the winner, a good winner, as you're just saying, on the gallop out. So again, going longer here. I kind of like that. And then you look at some of those other races, she was down at Fairgrounds running on a day when I think it was very speed friendly, and she was not, on the lead. Then she was on the lead back in December, which I don't think is her game. She took him as far as she could. And then you go back to her maiden win back in November, and it was just, she absolutely crushed the field. So I think there's a lot of, I think potential here. I think if she can kind of get a clean trip going that 9 furlongs, this might be her day.
Always a runner, of course, a debut winner, last outgoing 2 turns. Pashmina never gone shorter than 2 turns. Debuted at a mile at Keeneland on the turf. Since then has been running 2 turns at Fairgrounds and at Sunland Park. If you are wondering about experience, going 2 turns. Hot gossip, Steve, for Linda Rice here. Jose Lascano comes out of a muddy win over 7 furlongs and an optional claimer, was in a maiden optional before that. I mean, back-to-back wins if you want to be positive about this one, but go ahead and call it a donkey.
Well, tell me, if With the Angels wins the wins that, then I got to reassess my Linda Rice stat here. But until that happens, I'm going donkey.
How about you, Bob?
This gets the hee-haw. Yes, definitely the donkey on this one. I think really it's asking a lot to class up into this, and the speed figures don't really don't tell you that she's better than she looks. So yeah, definitely donkey.
Tom Morley will send Victory Hall, a daughter of Independence Hall, to the gate here. Ricardo Santana Jr., who really reinvented himself last year in New York, got back into the kind of groove that we got spoiled by here at Churchill Downs when he was running with Steve Asmussen trainees for so many years. She wins the Maddie May last out at Aqueduct over Good Go. That was in state bred company. She is a New York bred here. What do you make of Victory Hall here as a potential upsetter?
I'm going to say donkey. I just don't. I think I'm just not overwhelmed by anything that I see. I think she's a good horse. Going to be a very, very useful New York State bred. Might be able to win some minor open stakes, but I think in this one in particular, I think it's a good solid field. So I think she's going to have a little bit of trouble in it.
Steve?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's to me, it's a donkey. I just don't think the spots she's been in and the competition that she's been facing really has her prepared for this.
A second maiden in the field on the outside, Steve, in Slow Cara. I really do question the names of some of these horses. I want to be on record here. I think Victory Hall, when your mom's name is into Victory and your dad's name is is Independence Hall, that's a good job on the name. Slow Cara seems a little mean for no reason. Daughter of Medaglia d'Oro is still a maiden. Maybe she is slow after all, Steve. A gazelle or donkey here?
Yeah, donkey, and I'm saying she lives up to the name.
Steve. Oh no. Bob, what you got here?
Oh yeah, I'm in the same camp. I think this one a donkey. I don't understand why she's here instead of a maiden race.
Yeah.
But I will say one thing, and like a horse like Grittiness will show you sometimes. Maidens in these type of races are not just automatic toss outs.
Oh, sure.
Because a lot of these horses don't have much experience. They're not really removed from the maiden ranks, and a horse who could be competitive in the maiden ranks can sometimes offer you pretty good value in these type of races. But I mean, this is a horse who got clobbered in a maiden race, so I just don't. I don't even know why it's here, and especially from the outside post.
Yeah,
she's going to lose a lot of ground on the turn, so it's going to take some performance for her to win.
Yeah, getting clobbered very different than pronking for sure. That was the Gazelle. We appreciate everybody hanging out in that. Who do you have on top in the Gazelle, Steve?
Yeah, Pashmina is my top choice here.
Okay, how about that? All right, great. Bob, how about for you? Who's your biggest Gazelle amongst the Gazelles?
I'm going to try 2 bits. I'm going to see if she could pull off a bit of a price horse.
I think you're going to get 5 to 1, 6 to 1 on that horse.
Yeah, I'm willing to take a chance with her. I think after that, Paradise would be the choice below her. So
Paradise on top for me. I'll talk about that when we get to my pick 3 ticket to close the show. The Grade 2 Wood Memorial is the closer on the card. Shout out to everybody in Equestris taking in the final Wood Memorial there at Aqueduct. 1 1/8 on the dirt here. 3-year-olds, of course. Winner gets a spot in the Kentucky Derby starting gate. Bob and I were talking yesterday. No guarantees that a second place finish here. It definitely gets you in, but everybody's going to try at least to be in the top 2 here. We'll go horse by horse again in this one. Slightly different game. We play this one every year. If it's a winner, it's a hardwood. If it's a loser, it's a plywood. Okay, very simple game that we play here. I have no fun facts about Plywood, Steve Kornacki, so no worries there. Again, the Wood Memorial, a mile and an eighth here. We'll start with you, Bob. Napoleon Solo. I know you're high on this one. Chad Summer trains. And boy, if Steve's been talking about Paco Lopez, no reason to think he won't go hardwood on this one. Bob, where'd you land on the inside horse here in Napoleon Solo?
Definitely a hardwood. I mean, talking to the connections before the Fountain of Youth, they weren't looking for a win, but I was really a little bit disappointed in how he did run. Now they were saying, well, once Kendrick realized he was beat, he eased up on the horse. Okay, that's fair. So maybe he's a little bit closer. But I do think that since then, he's worked out sharply. He's got the rail. Talking to trainer Chad Summers, the other Chad in New York, they were a little coy. He was coy about it. I mean, I guess you're going to go to the front, right? And I would think with Talk to Me Jimmy next to it, it is. So there's, I think we're going to try to see a performance much more like the Champagne. I think we're going to see the best of Napoleon Solo in this race. He'll have his this should be a strong performance from him. He'll have every reason to be right there at the finish, being that he has the rail. How fast he and Talk to Me Jimmy is going to hold the key to the race, they could set something up. But I've seen enough of these where you went in the wood where you see a certain speed horse, if they get the early edge, sometimes they just keep going in the stretch. And certainly I think Napoleon Solo is very much one to beat.
$40,000 yearling purchase. Good job. Good job. Steve, where'd you land here? Hardwood, plywood?
Yeah, I mean, my man Paco, but I'm going to go plywood on this one. And it's one of the, I think it kind of, to me, it kind of had to make a decision here on the two favorites, whether, you think the winner's coming from one of them or it's coming from elsewhere. Obviously, I landed elsewhere. And the case against this one that I ended up just making was, that Fountain of Youth that Bob's talking about. I was just I had some expectations for Napoleon Solo in that race, and I was so disappointed. He seemed to be in pretty good position. I know there was a little bit of trouble early, but I think it was too much. He seemed to be in pretty good position when they got to that turn, and I just thought he folded real bad, and before there was any decision by the rider. So I just, the idea of the step up in competition there, the first race is a 3-year-old going around 2 turns and just being that empty. I got too discouraged by that. And then I wondered if there is, I take Bob's point. You see a lot of speed on paper. It certainly doesn't always materialize in New York. But then I do wonder, is there going to be a little too much here for them to do what they want to do? So kills me to go against Paco, but I'm going to go plywood on this one.
Napoleon Solo, of course, the winner of the Champagne, as Bob said, a son of Liam's Map, $40,000 purchase. They have gotten their money's worth there for sure. Talk to Me Jimmy will break from the 2, Steve. And I'm going to have to be talked off of the ledge about Talk to Me Jimmy, because I love this horse. I love him in this spot. I think he makes a ton of sense. I don't understand the path to the Wood Memorial going 2 turns, then 1 turn, then 2 turns, then 1 turn. But here we are. He was the one who went 2 turns in the Withers and really, really loved it. He's my top pick in this race. Where'd you land on him? Hardwood, plywood?
Oh, geez, I'm going plywood again here. I struggled on this one because the Withers win came when the track was really, I think, at its funkiest. Whether it was the rail or it was speed or it was both, and that it was favoring, I think both of those things were doing very well. And he just traveled. He had such an easy lead in the Withers, and really in that maiden win too, state bred maiden race. So I just think the dynamic in this race is going to be much different. I noticed in the Withers too, it was like, I wanted to say it was the rail. He was pretty far off the rail, so I don't think the rail was really carrying him. That did give me kind of pause here, but I just kind of felt like it was a weird time at Aqueduct. He had it incredibly easy, and it's just going to be very different here.
Bob.
Louis, I respect you because you've really surprised me with some of the horses you come up with, and boy, do they run lights out. So I got it, but I am tempted. I gotta agree with Steve. I'm going to give him plywood. I think, look how the race is drawn. The 2 main speed break next to each other from the inside, so they're going to go. I don't think one of them, now again, somebody could break slow, somebody could stumble, something could happen. But I just think there's a situation that the two of them are going to go. I'm tempted. I like he did grab a quarter in that race. Rudy said he didn't lose much time, but you kind of wonder if that was like for him what they might call the knockout number. That was the best race he's probably ever going to run. I think everything went his way. Everything was perfect. This is going to be a lot tougher. I'm tempted to play against him in this spot.
All right, and I just enjoy being wrong on Saturday, boys. Have fun with it. All right, so we move on to the next horse.
Just tell us about Ethical Diamond, Louis.
Yeah, I mean,
poor Bob covered that race for BloodHorse and had to deal with me at Del Mar. I can't imagine how terrible it was to be around me on that Saturday.
You're picking hurdlers. I said, where do you think you are? Far Hills? I mean, I'm saying, when he came up with that horse, I was wondering, boy, who's this Rube? What's he coming up with?
Who brought these Kentucky guys?
Flashing out a roll of $100 bills after the race. So it's sort of like, geez, come on, Louis.
Went okay for me. All right. So up next on our hardwood or plywood with Steve Kornacki and Bobby Ehalt. Appreciate both guys jumping on with us here on the Horse Racing Happy. We're talking about the Wood Memorial win and in for the Kentucky Derby. Breaking from the 3 will be Right to Party. Chris Elliott, one of the finalists there for the Eclipse Award last year. Kenny McPeak trains here. They teamed up in the Gotham. This was the 3rd place finisher in that race. Steve, we go to actually, no, I'm sorry. We go to Bob here first. Bob, is this one that maybe, hey, son of Constitution, maybe just wants to get around 2 turns, hardwood or plywood here?
I give him a hardwood. I mean, again,
okay.
I do think there's going to be a fast pace. He has the look to me of a horse that is going to want this extra distance. I saw him break his maiden. I saw him run in the Gotham. I think 2 turns might really suit him. This is a horse. He's in good hands. I mean, Kenny McPeak is the trainer, but he's got Jimmy Jerkins in New York taking care of him. I could see this horse. He's a nice 20-1 price. I would definitely use him in exotics, and who knows if the pace gets ridiculous, a horse like this might be the one who really benefits from it. So I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on this one, and give him the old hardwood knock.
There you go. All right, Steve, what you got?
I mean, is there some combination of hardwood and plywood we could do? I didn't do too well in shop class in high school, but I kind of feel like, I should be saying hardwood, I guess, only because I have a feeling the winner's not going to be one of these 2 favorites, and it's going to be the kind of race where a horse like this comes in. This isn't I had 3 or 4 that I'm kind of like in my mind are the real contenders. This is not one of them, but I don't disagree with what Bob was saying. I think I would have liked to have seen, a little bit more, I think, from the horse, in that Gotham. But sure, at a giant price, I wouldn't be saying it's a bad call by anybody.
All right, we'll go to Steve for Steele up next. Comes out of a maiden break, or 2nd race ever for Bill Mott. My friend JD Fox, who's on the show pretty often, he says he might not be the price of the last Wood winner. I actually gave out on your show. Bourbonic he did, by the way. But I do expect big improvement out of the gate and from his strong closing debut for Bill Mott. And hey, Sahin Savachi, of course, my pick for the most underrated jockey in North America. No pressure, Steve. What say you about hardwood or plywood here for Steele? 12-1 in here for Bill Mott.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time trying to figure this one out. I'm going to just land for the description I just gave you of my method here. I'm going to call him plywood still, but like it's Mott. They never win debut. We won debut. It's Tappet. It should, the distance should be. I mean, so there is a ton here, and I get it. I kind of thought watching that race that it wasn't this big, strong, overpowering performance by this horse as much as it was the others. Just went real fast early in a 1-turn race, and they were just gassed. And he just, kind of just got up. So I again, like it's Tappet. There's a lot to like here, but when I saw the race on paper, I was like, I think this is gonna be my horse. When I watched that race, I said, maybe it doesn't indicate what it looks like it does on paper.
It is interesting this time of year, Bob, to see a Talk to Me Jimmy, a $5,000 breeding job next to a $110,000, $185,000 pre job here. What do you make of Steele in this spot, Bob?
I'm going to call him. I'm going to call him Plywood.
Okay.
I'd like to, like Bill shows you with Chief Wallaby, he could turn, these, relatively short raced horses into really good horses. I'm not sure if this is the one. The other thing, he broke slowly, and I know then he made this real big charge to win. I've over the years have seen when I see a horse break slowly in the first start, I don't know what they're going to do in the second, because you really don't know if this horse's style is that he's a late closer, or is he really a speed horse who just didn't get out of the gate. And now maybe Saturday, he's going to go out and, show some early speed, which I don't think is going to be very helpful to anyone. So I think he's going to be overbet because he's Bill Mott. If it was somebody else other than Bill Mott, you would have gotten a much higher price. That, of course, explains being from Bill Mott. Yes, you want to think about him, but
that's the other side. Yep.
in a field this big, I'm gonna put him as the I was about to say donkey, but we'll call him the Plywood.
No pronking at all. All right, so we move on. We get to the next horse here in Ocelli. Whit Beckman sending this one up here instead of to Keeneland. Joe Ramos keeps the mount here. We saw him in the Derby last year aboard Flying Mohawk. What do you make of Ocelli in here, Bob?
Definitely Plywood. I mean, he hasn't really shown you much in stakes company that you would think he's going to turn in. That he's going to turn in a real big performance. They're taking the blinkers off, which means they're not sure of what to get from the horse. Maybe the blinkers off. All of a sudden he decides to run, but I'm not. As I say, there's so many other options in this race at 20-1. Even at 20-1, I'm going to pass, and I'll put him in with the Plywoods.
I saw Steve nodding in Plywood here. Do you know what Ocelli's going to do, Steve? He's going to win a maiden race on Derby week, and he's going to be awesome at Churchill over the mile at a 16th. Like Mind Frame last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was, where he really made his appearance. We were like, whoa, who's that 3-year-old? Whoa, I think it might be Ocelli this year. I don't think it'll be on Saturday.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's that Plywood for me, that Virginia Derby. I mean, with the last furlong, he was right there, and you're like, this guy might win, and that he just folded completely when it mattered. So he's had chances to impress me and has not.
Minor Inconvenience, 30-1, Rodriguez, and another Amelia Green starter in here. This is another New York State bred here. Did win the funny side at Saratoga in August. Second off the layoff here, Steve. Why not? 30-1. Minor Inconvenience. Minor Plywood or minor hardwood here? What do we
I'm going minor plywood, maybe major Plywood, to be honest with you. I don't mean to knock the horse. It's I love these sort of overachieving, New York breds or whatever.
Yeah,
but look, first around 2 turns, first time in open company. I have a note here. I don't remember the race too well, but in that funny side, I have a note, not the best here, but the luckiest. So
hey, luck is good, Bob. I haven't been very lucky in my life. I look like this after all, but a hardwood or Plywood here for Minor Inconvenience.
I would say Plywood. Speed figures aren't bad, but the class that he's stepping up into, I can't go with him.
All right, Elvis will break from the 7 here, Steve, and this is an interesting one. A Yaupon on the sire side, but we do get the Bernardini mare. We're always looking for that Bernardini mare around here. Breaks the maiden last out for Riley Mott at Tampa. I'm fascinated by this one. I've interviewed Riley Mott, and I know you have, Bob. That's a sharp dude. He's going to be a good trainer for a long time. But what do we make of Elvis here? Will we see him in Louisville?
Finally, I get to say hardwood.
Okay.
This is I'm really, that race at Tampa, the maiden win. Now I know there wasn't a ton in there, and he was like 1-2, but he looked like a horse that had serious potential. This is 3 races now, 3 significant jumps in the Beyer performance. As the first time at 3, going around 2 turns, looked like 9 furlongs. I know the breeding makes you question it with Yaupon, but looked from that Tampa race like, this is a horse who could go pretty far. And I just think we'll see. I was saying earlier, like Bob was saying, the speed doesn't always show up in New York, but the more there's kind of speed here, I think there's potential for this horse to come from just a little bit off of it and just, pass them all in the stretch. So I like this one a lot. And Riley Mott, by the way, he has incredible. He's been doing Will Walden on turf, Riley Mott on dirt. These have been the two when I see them in these spots that I kind of hone in on.
You know, it's interesting too, Bob. We just watched Emerging Market do exactly this in the Louisiana Derby. Goes from winning a 2-turner in a maiden run at Tampa, goes to Louisiana, wins the longest prep in North America for the Derby in his second start. Any chance Elvis does this year?
You know, I'm going to borrow Steve's in between wood. I definitely think this is one that is on, you know, showing the kind of improvement you like, getting better from start to start. Got a good fig off that race. Certainly, when I look at that, I think, yeah, this horse has a real good chance. But I don't like, again, he seems to want to be part of the pace, and I'm not sure if that's really where I want a horse. This, you know, I just don't think he's as fast as some of the other ones. And will that take something out of him? The other key thing in him, the big race last time when he looked so impressive at Tampa, he was on Lasix. And you know, he's not going to have that here. So you do wonder, was it the Lasix that really helped him? Or is he really that good? That's why, you know, he's inviting at the price. You know, if he's 12-1, that's a very inviting price. We'll see. We'll wonder if this might be kind of like one of those wise guy horses they bet down. But like I say, I see things to like and things not to like. So I guess in the end, price is going to determine really where he falls into my category, into my wagering.
I'm fascinated by him for what I talked about with Emerging Market, but we also saw it with Renegade. Horses are coming out of that Tampa route and they're flying everywhere they go, whether it's Oaklawn, whether it's in Louisiana. Those aren't the same kind of track at all to me. So I don't know why this horse, to back up Steve here, and frankly, you too, Bob, I'm kind of in the in-between spot too, but boy, I'm completely unstunned if this horse shows up in a big way on Saturday. They're at Aqueduct alongside Bob Ehalt from BloodHorse and my friend Steve Kornacki from NBC Sports. I'm Lou Yerbo, and this is the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Courting will break from the 8 here, Steve, and this is a fascinating one that I think we all thought of ahead of the Remsen, where he wasn't the favorite, but boy, he was coming out of a very dominating maiden special win in November, gets into that Remsen. He runs behind Paladin and Renegade. No shame in that. Gets back behind Paladin again in the Risen Star. No shame in that, but boy, hasn't really been close in graded stakes. What do you make of him though? And are we doubting Todd Pletcher in the Wood Memorial?
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned Bourbonic a couple minutes ago, kind of, you know, so this one won't be that kind of a price, but I'm going to call him hardwood here. You know, I thought that you mentioned the Remsen and he had a real bad start in the Remsen. So I remember going into that Risen Star. I think he was my pick in the Risen Star. He was one, you know, and just sort of based on the company he had in the Remsen and the trouble that he had at the start of that race and the potential, right? This is what, a $5 million horse here. Again, I think had some, there is maybe a little bit of an excuse still from that Risen Star. Didn't run well, but also didn't start well in that race again. And it just feels to me with Pletcher, with the expectations, with the breeding, it's full sibling to Clairiere, that there could be something here. And this is sort of the acid test race. So I'll call him hardwood. Yeah, for $5 million, I should call him hardwood, right?
8-1 on Courting. I don't think we thought that ahead of a couple months ago, ahead of the Wood Memorial here. Bob, what do you make of him here?
No, I mean, I agree. I'm gonna put him as a hardwood. You know, $5 million horse at 8-1. He has had troubles at the gate, and so we kind of know that that's his style. He does have the late running style. I might be kind of looking for to try to find it with a long shot. You know, he really hasn't shown a lot, but he has had some excuses. Maybe this is the day everything goes right. Todd Pletcher has this great record in the Wood, 7 wins in the last 15 tries. You know, you got to respect his horses. So, you know, I'll definitely look at him. But, you know, as I say, you do wonder if he'd be here if he was only, shall we say, a $400,000 horse. I mean, I'm certainly, when you pay that much for a horse, you want to give him every chance to shine in the biggest spots. So I think that's part of the reason he's here. And we'll see if he can really, if he deserves it.
Bravaro will break from the 9, Bob, a son of Upstart here. We're throwing the blinkers on another one that I think they're trying to figure out if he fits in this spot or not. Look, bred New York here. We've seen him at Gulfstream Park the last 2 times. Bravaro, hardwood or plywood?
I would say hardwood. I mean, you know, Safi's come up here and won this race, you know, at a big price, if I recall properly. And, again, they are trying. They're putting the blinkers on. They're trying to see what went on. He hasn't raced that badly. And, I do think, again, he's going to be a horse that'll be dependent upon the pace. And I think he's going to get the pace that he likes. So I think you definitely want to give him a look. And, just see if he can work out a really good trip. He's an interesting possibility again at the 8-1. You're getting the prices that make you want to take the chance on these horses who are maybe 50-50 to fire.
My mic got muted there. Sorry. What do you make, Steve, here of the ever difficult to find out?
I thought you were swearing under your breath over something I said. I wasn't sure. I said, what did I say? That,
Bleep these Connecticut guys for knocking Michigan State out of the tournament. No, it wasn't that. The
hardwood of basketball and pizza.
Yeah, we're not doing that. The hardwood or plywood, Steve. Which one do you got here?
No, I'm going hardwood too on this one. He's not running against Commandment in Chief Wallaby this time. He's not running against. Nearly was nothing in the Florida Derby, but or wasn't much in the Florida Derby, but certainly was in the Holy Bull. So he's run against, some of the best here. I think in that Fountain Youth, I don't think he's going to win the race, obviously, but he had trouble, early in that race. He wasn't the most comfortable trip for him. So no, I think this is another horse, like Bob is saying, I think there's potential here. He's back in New York and he's facing maybe a more manageable spot.
Sorry, this thing is messing up on me. There we go. 3 more horses to go here. I'm cussing at Steve. Now it's not good. The 3 more horses to go here. Breaking from the 10 for Hugo Padilla will be Red Zone Runner. They're praying for rain here. Steve, what do you make of him?
Look, if the race were at Parks and had a different field, I'd be all over him. But I think he's just in a different league here. So I'm going to go plywood on this one.
And for you, Bob?
Plywood. If it's not Butch Reed, I'm not coming up from Parks. I'm not going with it.
Otino will ship to Kentucky. So, Steve, you're going twice here. Butane. Bob Baffert, once again, ships for the Wood Memorial winner last year with Rodriguez, a front-running style. And, Bob, let's go ahead and play it out. We haven't done this together. How do you look at Rodriguez in last year's Derby field if he doesn't get hurt? I liked him a lot.
I did like him a lot. I thought that performance in the Wood Memorial was really impressive. Bob Baffert was liking him. Look, Baffert really is, when you talk to Baffert, he'll tell you about his horses. You can get the feel of what he likes and what he doesn't like. He has so many horses, so it's not like, oh, I love all my horses. There's some that he focuses on. Like I say, there's a lot of talk for him. He really likes this Cherokee Nation in the Santa Anita Derby, so it's going to be interesting with him. But I thought Rodriguez was really going to turn in a big effort in the Derby, but then he came up with those problems and never really caught up. But I think he would have turned in a real big performance in the Derby based on what I saw in the Wood.
Totally agree with you, Steve. Butane here out of the Virginia Derby most recently. Very clearly, the Zidane folks think that this is a Derby horse, so they have shipped him to New York for this one. Hardwood, plywood on Butane.
I'm going plywood on this one. He's no Rodriguez.
I agree.
In different style, and I was going around 2 turns twice, and I don't think didn't wow me either time. And really, I think in that last one in the Virginia Derby, to me, watching the race, I know I think the comment in the form is that he had some trouble. It was bottled up, but Incredible. I didn't think he had much worse of a trip than Incredible did, who won the race. So I didn't think there's much of an excuse there. I think, you pay this kind of money, you have these kind of expectations. You're going to do everything you can to find a spot to get him there. This is desperation time for them. And I don't see it.
We saw Martin Garcia in the Derby last year for Baffert. He rides Butane here. What do you say, Bob?
Look, I'm usually a big backer of Baffert's horses, but I don't think they've really been firing that well, especially the Colts. So I'm going to go plywood. I don't see a lot that's tells me he's sitting on a big race. I think he might be competitive in this field, but I just, kind of like a horse like maybe Litmus Test that we saw, who, okay, horse can win maybe in the right spots, but I don't know. I just don't see him jumping up and turning in the kind of performance, like I say, like we saw from Rodriguez. I mean, I think there was a little bit more confidence coming out of the Rodriguez camp last year than maybe what we're seeing for this one.
Iron Honor will break from the outside, Steve. The 13 hole, essentially the 12 hole here. Now that Otinho has decided to ship, or the connections have shipped the Otinho to Keeneland. What do you make of Iron Honor on the outside? We heard Bob earlier in the show. This would be the most likely high level Derby contender out of this race should he make it.
Look, I gave you my philosophy on my hardwood plywood designation here. So I'm going to call him plywood, fully recognizing that he may end up in the winner's circle here, but I guess more from a betting perspective, I'm going to call him plywood. Having the outside post in a big field like this, going 2 turns for the first time, I think when you look at that Gotham that he won, one thing that jumped out at me, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, he got passed on the gallop out by Crown the Buckeye. Crown the Buckeye, not exactly, I think, going to be a distance horse here. And I just think, again, he's probably going to have to go fast early, just given that outside post. If there is a lot of speed in this race, he may get a little bit mixed up in that, I think. So I just think this is a different challenge for him, and there's enough doubts and enough knocks given the short price that from a betting standpoint, at least I'll call him plywood in this one.
I don't hate that at all, Bob. How do you feel about this one? Can he win from the 12?
I'm gonna be a bit of a contrarian. I'm gonna go hardwood with him because here's my take on it. Aqueduct is not Gulfstream, so the outside post is difficult, but you do have more of a run to the first turn. I think you're going to have a situation where the 2 rail horses are going to go off. Manny, if he breaks well, and this horse has some speed, I think could draft over and get a decent position going into the first turn. A lot has to go right. And in a sense, from a wagering standpoint, taking the 5-2 or the 2-1 that he's going to go off at, that's risky, hoping that the trip is going to work out, because certainly he doesn't want to get caught 4 or 5 wide on that first turn. But I think the dynamics of the race might work out to favor him. Manny really knows this racetrack. And I think he has tactical enough speed to sit off and as I say, get that position. I think in terms of the quality of the horse, I mean, look, I think, to be frank, the best horse on their best day, the best horse in the field is probably Napoleon Solo. Are we going to get that? We'll see. I think this horse will be. I think this horse will be right there. I'm thinking he could work out a good trip. I can understand how people might want to bet against him, and I could see the odds. I think it's a risky shot for a favorite, but I think the horse is that good. And let's face it, this was a horse where this was going to be Chad Brown's maybe second, third option going into the Derby. Now without Paladin, this an emerging market, or probably his 2 best shots. So I think this horse is going to be really looking to put in a pretty good performance that will set him up for another big run in the Derby.
Napoleon Solo on top for you, Bob.
I'm gonna go with him because he has the rail, he has the speed. I think we're going to see. I think the return to Aqueduct is going to bring out a real good performance by him, and then I think I could see Iron Honor getting second off the trip.
Steve, your late pick 3 involves only the 7 horse in the Wood, which makes me think I know who your top pick in the Wood is. But you also are going to single in the distaff with Jody's Pride. You're going to try to beat Immersive that way. You and I have something in common that way in our pick 3s, but you are going to spread in that middle leg. And we talked about that with Bob earlier on. You're going to take 2 stands here, though. So spreading a little bit in that middle part of the pick 3 there is just fine. On a dollar basis, Steve's pick 4 is $4 per unit that you play it at. The 7 horse, though, in the Wood Memorial, of course, you're going for it. You're taking the maiden winner last out in Albus with Riley Mott.
I'm going to take a shot here. I like I said, my logic was sort of, let's play against these 2 favorites. Bob makes a really good case there. And for all I know, they'll run 1-2 and that'll be it. But I wanted to take a shot on the price in that last race. I really do like Jody's Pride for the reasons I said. And then if those two ever hit, I just want to make sure I have it. So, I think you got the top 4 choices there in that middle leg.
I went a slightly different way. I'm also going to try to beat Immersive in the distaff. I'll use Jody's Pride. I'll also use the 5-horse there, and I apologize. With the Angels is the Linda Rice horse. I just think she's just a player at Aqueduct, and that's what it's going to be. I think the most likely winner in the late sequence is Paradise for Brad Cox, the daughter of Gunrunner in the Gazelle. And then I'm going to use the horse I think has the best value on the inside that can win, the 2-horse here, and Talk to Me Jimmy. And then the horse that I think is by far just the best horse in this field in Iron Honor, at least at this point in his career, and that pick 3 as well. So 3, 5, 1, and 2, and 13 in the final leg. Again, like Steve, $4 per dollar on my pick 3 there as well. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out. Bob, enjoy the final Wood Memorial at Aqueduct. What an impossible thing to say, the 101st. But here we are. Appreciate both of you guys jumping on for the show. Steve, you said you're traveling for Easter. Does that mean you don't get to go to like the Santa Anita Derby, something like that? Whatever you NBC types get to do? Is that how this?
Apparently, I'm going to Bob's home state for to see some family.
Look at it. Talk. There you go. All right. Well, appreciate both of you being on. Of course, Bob's coverage available at BloodHorse.com. Go check him out over there. Of course, if there's any of those. And I'm Louis Rebel. This is the Horse Racing Happy Hour, back right here in this spot, 2:00 tomorrow for our Santa Anita Derby preview, live 11 o'clock on Saturday, right at Keeneland Raceway. Come say hi to us. We'll be right by on the finish line there. For Bob and Steve, my name's Louis Rebel. Have a great weekend, everybody.